All right, today we're going to be talking about integrating technology into the classroom. Although this article is talking about online classrooms, I thought it was very interesting because of the different things that they go into depth and things that we can definitely use into our classroom. So, the title of this article, as you can see, Integrating Technology into the Online Classroom, Part 1, talks about just about that, integrating technology into the classroom. And it starts off by talking about how we have students, and we all are familiar with these students, that they struggle in the classroom, especially with our core classes, such as ELA, math, science, social studies. But the big question is, why do they struggle? Well, and what is, of course, what can we do as teachers? Well, a lot of times the students struggle in the classroom because we're consistently using conventional teaching methods. You know, that old school teaching methods. Get out your book and your pencil. Let me give you a worksheet, the kill and drill type thing, versus non-conventional teaching methods that the students are used to using. They're getting on Facebook, they're tweeting, they're Instagram, they're using all different types of social media, which really goes along with blogs and writing, but they're just writing in a different way that we're used to from when we were growing up. So the article goes further into, they talked about, again, how those students are struggling, why they're struggling because of the non-conventional versus the conventional ways of teaching that we're doing. And it says that we basically need to become innovators in our classroom. We have to keep up with the time of our students. So yes, this comic right here says, I'm taking an innovative approach to teaching this semester. I'm using books. That's innovative in going the opposite direction. The article really wants us to go the other way, where we're using books and we want to move away from books and going into using more technology. How can we incorporate technology into our classroom? Well, these four great people, John Steele, Thomas Dyer, Elizabeth Larson, and Rick Hobeck, who wrote this article, got together and said, you know what? We have all different type of benefits that we can use when we're incorporating technology in the classroom. It's kind of like a persuasive paper, but also informative, because so many teachers are stuck in what some of the students would probably figure us to be in the ice age, where we're using these conventional methods of teaching and we're not getting anywhere, and we're going home and we're tired every day, and the kids are not drained at all because they've done a couple of worksheets, and then when it gets to assessments, we're trying to figure out as teachers, why don't they understand it? Well, we need to go ahead and tap into these teaching benefits. We already know that every time that we're teaching, it's all about rigor. With the new STAR test, going from tax test to STAR test, the rigor has increased. Bloom's taxonomy is there. We can increase to that creating level by putting the work on the students, allowing them to become the innovators in the classroom. Where we, instead of us being teachers, we need to move from us thinking of ourselves as teachers and move to us being facilitators, where we're putting the assignments on the kids. That allows the students to take ownership of what they're learning, and also it allows them to take what they're learning and incorporate it into something they're probably going to be using on a regular basis. When we make it more beneficial for the students, then they tend to understand it more, and they tend to remember it later on because it becomes important for them. Also, the big thing is differentiated instruction. How can I teach all of my students within this time frame? As me, a middle school teacher, it's difficult to only have 50 to 75 minutes in class, and I have 30 to 32 kids that I have to teach. And guess what? They're all learning in different ways. So how can I consistently assess them and make sure that I am attacking whatever problems that student is having when this student may not be having the same problem that my next student is having? How can I get them to understand something when they all learn something different? Well, if we incorporate technology into the classroom, we are able to get differentiated instruction going on at the same time, and I'm not stressing myself out at the end of the day. Just like this little picture has, we can have ongoing assessments where I can always be going back and assessing. We have this great tool that our students use called iStation. iStation automatically assesses the kids once a month. So if they're going in there at least 20 minutes, it suggests this 20 minutes a day for good teaching lessons, and to have an efficient assessment going on, it automatically assesses them, and I get that report back, and it gives me detail how this child is doing with vocabulary, how they're doing with comprehension, how they're doing with reading fluency. And I don't have to go in and have these paper and pencils and checking or going using the Scantron machine to figure this information out. Flexible grouping. If I go and I use my iStation information, I can say, okay, these kids who are having that are reading in this particular Lexile group, I'm going to put them in group 1. This other group, they're going to be in group 2. And that way I can go in and I can automatically know who my students are who are struggling. And I can also go in to help those kids meet them at the level where they are. Tiered lesson, that goes right back into that. Compacting, going right back into what I just talked about. Learning centers. I can create learning centers with technology. And sometimes it doesn't have to be all technology, but incorporating technology, it's going to incorporate the kids' attention because that's what they're used to using. And just like at the bottom of the young lady, it says, oh, forget it. It's easy just to do nothing. She's entirely right. It's easier to do nothing if I'm using the conventional teaching methods. And the last but not least, most importantly, I allow my students to think about what I am teaching them in a whole different perspective. So, yes, I have to teach poetry. Yes, I have to teach different types of writing. And kids really don't like to write for the most part. But if I can take that and give them a whole different perspective and let them know that, hey, you guys write on a regular basis. When you guys are posting something to your Twitter account, when you guys are texting one another, you are writing. But it goes further when you become older, because when you go in and you create an email to your boss, or you have to, when you become a parent, you have to email that teacher to say, hey, I need some assistance with my child. You need to be able to formulate correct sentences. So some kind of ways I can use those different types of social media to help me help my students look at different ways of writing. Persuasive writing, I brought that one up as an example because, again, kids don't like to write. But persuasion is around us all the time. They verbally persuade their parents on a regular basis. They verbally persuade their teachers on a regular basis. I don't want to do homework. Well, why don't you want to do homework, Johnny? Because, and they go into those different types of methods, whether it's whining or whether it's a formal way of persuading or it's an informal. They're just own little natural ways of persuading, but they do it on a regular basis. So we incorporate what we have to teach them to what they're already doing. We get more bang for our buck. The kids understand it. The kids will take to it more because it's now becoming beneficial. And so just like this little picture, of course, we don't want our little goldfish to die, but he just kind of looked at it in another light. He went upside down and then he said, so this is what it will be like. It's not that bad. So again, if we go and we present it to our kids, oh, okay, Ms. Tolbert, this is what persuasive writing is like. Okay, it's really not that bad. Right, because you're doing it on a regular basis anyway. Okay, so these 4 writers who create this article, they got together and they said, you know what, this is a great idea that we have. Let's go ahead and let's create what we call a technology think tank. This technology think tank, basically they use Web 2.0 tools to create different resources that the teachers and the students can utilize on a regular basis so that they can understand what their teachers are teaching them in the classroom, in their core classes. And again, just to help them out from what we were talking about at the beginning, how those students struggle. So they use a Web 2.0 tool, Weebly, which we're all familiar with because we use that for our e-portfolio. They also use Glogster, which is another, it's a blogging site, kid-friendly. And then they use Animoto. That's something I'm very familiar with that I use with my kids. I used it in a ways of going back for characterization. So we read a novel and they had to go in and they had to create recreate a chapter using any character from that chapter. And they had to give us the perspective of that person. So that way I can know, do you really understand that character? Do you really understand their conflict? And it would be different things that I would set a rubric for them to have in there. But I also gave them a lot of freedom in order to go ahead and create what they wanted. And so but it was also a great way for me to understand, do my students understand what I'm teaching in class? So at the end of the day, integrating technology into the online classroom is just what it is, just like I said at the beginning. It's just making sure that we're integrating technology and giving us the benefits of integrating technology. At the end of the day, so many of us, like I said at the beginning, we go home tired at the end of the day, and our kids go home full of energy. It needs to be the other way around. We're no longer the learners in the classroom. They are. But we need to make sure that we're using things that our students are using on a regular basis, because we are moving into a more technological way of living. And our kids are going to one day become innovators of all these different great things. So we want to make sure that we're equipping them with all different types of material, that they're going to be our information they're going to be able to use to create great materials later on that eventually, hopefully, we'll be using in the near future. So if you would like to if you would like to read this article in depth, you can go back to slide number 2. And if you click on that link, click on the picture, it'll take you directly to the link and you can read the full entire article. Thank you. Have a great day.